Hello there. I'm going to try and make this a fairly short video, although I've made that comment at the beginning of some before and it didn't turn out to be very short. But I am going to try. I'm going to try my best to keep it brief. So, yeah, the title you might be thinking, and that's a bit odd, the Guru Paradox. Well, the reason I'm calling it that is because quite often, from my understanding of people who would wish to be gurus, that avail of the opportunity to become a sort of guru type, are unfortunately very often the people who are actually least suited to be a guru. You know, I think the people who actually make the best gurus, if you want to use such a term, are people that don't want to be, people who possess innate wisdom, who have great life experience and an understanding of humanity and of the world, but don't actually wish to become somebody that's put on a pedestal. The people that pursue this, that they're looking for adulation, they're looking for acknowledgement, they're looking for celebrity status, they want people to hang on their every word. These are the last people who you should actually be listening to, because they have ulterior motives which are mostly based around their own massive egos, and you see that a lot. And even there's people who may have started out on a great path who somehow go off the rails. One particular person I think of, who, this is purely my own personal opinion, and I'm not saying this is actually how it is. It's my own feeling about this particular person would be Deepak Chopra, who his early work seemed extremely sincere and heartfelt. I was of that opinion then, and I look at his later life, later work, and the way that he operates his sort of business empire, if you like. I think he was someone that had the potential to be a great teacher, who has then just, as far as I'm concerned, has got sidetracked with commercialism and sort of, pop spirituality. That's just my personal opinion of that particular guy. But that's one example of what I think can happen to people who maybe start out with great intentions, and that can be, for very many different reasons, ends up subverted. We're all basically human beings, and we have the fragility and weaknesses of humanity. But it's very easy to put people on a pedestal to make them into living saints, when they're not necessarily perfect people, that they are flawed just like everybody else. They may have insights, they might have skills and abilities that most people don't have, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're morally superior to everyone else, or they have some unique connection to deity or to the meaning of existence. And I would say to people to be very wary of such things, because if you look at things like channeling, you have absolutely zero proof that the claims of this so-called channeled person or a channeled being that's coming through someone, how can you be sure it's genuine? How can you be sure that it's not actually the opposite of what you think it is? You might think it's some divine force or spiritually enlightened being or an ascended master. Who's to say that it's not some kind of demonic force that's masquerading as whatever it is? I'm not saying that's the case, but who's to say what way it is? I think you have to retain your own discernment, your own judgment, and you have always to retain sovereignty over your own self. Your own self-determination is absolutely vital. So, I mean, it's okay to take advice from people, but you should not hand over your sovereignty to them on a plate and hang on their every word. And, the same applies to divination. People may go and get tarot cards, runes. They might go and get life coaching. There's all kinds of therapies as well you can do. So when you go to this practitioner and they tell you, oh, you should do this, you should do that, you should pack in your job, you should leave your partner, tell all your friends to go to hell, or whatever it happens to be, whatever they have to say to you, what you need to do is go away and think about what they've said to you, reflect on it, and use your own inner guidance to decide whether it's advice that you wish to take, rather than just blindly accepting this elevating someone to a sort of godlike status where you accept everything they tell you and you're just going to unthinkingly just follow everything that they tell you. I mean, there's been so much abuse of people, not necessarily in terms of sexual abuse, in terms, gurus have slept with various people, taken advantage of their powerful position, but even on a less sort of sensational level of just telling people what to do with their lives when it necessarily is not their position to do so, where they're altering people's lives and sort of taking away people's sovereignty by influencing them to such an extent that they don't think for themselves. There's countless examples of people who've just upended their lives because some sort of new age guru has told them to do so, and then live to regret it afterwards. The world is full of people who have followed one guru and then gone on to another one and another one and another one, and they're always looking for answers from somebody else instead of looking inwards. And now I come back to that word, those two words I used about self-determination. That is the key. I think Gnosticism is the key to spirituality, to trying to understand the world through your own eyes, to understand yourself, and not to be handing over your power to somebody else. And that's not to say that you can't get advice from other people. Of course you can, but ultimately we have to be accountable our own selves for our own choices. We have to be sovereign in asserting our own power over our lives and making our choices and being responsible for those choices. So it's perfectly fine to take advice from people, to listen to that advice, but then ultimately you yourself had to make the decisions about what you do with your life and not allow someone else to make that decision for you, especially when it comes to your inner life, to your spiritual life, to your ethos, your sort of raison d'etre, if you like, of what is at the core of who you are and what you believe and what you're about and what your hopes and dreams are. Only really you know what that is, and you have to decide about how you're going to get there, and what is truly important to you in your heart of hearts. So it's okay to take some help, but you need to keep a perspective, and that's the trouble. What happens to people when they start elevating people to godlike status, you lose perspective. You start thinking that they know better about your life than you could know yourself. And of course, when they're saying it's coming from some being that's channeled from wherever, from a past life or some spiritual entity or even an alien entity, people sort of take exception and go, okay, well, look, this is not just, Stan from down the road, the postman or something. This is coming from whatever, so they're inclined to just accept it. And the same applies to, divination techniques. I think if you really, really desperately want to use divination, learn to do it. Learn to do it yourself. It's not that hard. It really isn't that hard to learn how to use things like runes or tarot or stinks or I Ching. There's a whole bunch of different methods you can use. Some of them are really very simple. So if you want to go down that road, why not invest the time into learning how to do it instead of paying a ton of money to someone else who may or may not have your best interests at heart. A lot of these people actually are just doing it for money. They don't actually care about you, and they don't even care if they give you the wrong advice, many of them. They are just simply, players in this spiritual supermarket selling their wares to customers. You're just a customer. That's all you are to many of these people. And trying to tell the difference between someone who really cares and is genuine and someone who's just in it for the money can be very difficult. It can be extremely difficult to tell the difference because some of these people are amazing actors and they have you convinced that they really care about you. And then they ask you for the next payment, but they still have you convinced that, they've got your interests at heart. You have, pardon me, you have your own interests at heart. And people who you really know and trust may also have your interests at heart. But somebody who you found off the internet, etc., they don't know you. They probably, at best, are sort of vaguely interested or slightly favourable to you, but you're not their friend. You're paying them money. Ultimately, you're availing of a service. And there are people who will give free advice, who actually genuinely try to help people for free, but quite often they're not valued. People who do stuff for nothing are often dismissed. And someone who's charging you, 200 quid an hour, people regard them as somehow special or more important or more valuable because they're charging this huge fee. So, it must be better if I have to pay 200 quid an hour. That's not necessarily the case. Sometimes the most genuine people will help you for absolutely nothing because they want to. And because they're the kind of people that actually care about humanity and about others. So I think you have to look at the person, you have to look at the advice that they're offering, you have to look at their motivation for what they've said, and their motivation to make more money where they need to keep you coming back again and again to consult them. There's a lot of possibilities there. I'm not saying all gurus are false and that everybody involved in sort of the self-help industry is a liar or false, but I'd say it's very much a case of buyer beware. And definitely, I think there is a large percentage of people who are involved in, selling their spiritual wares, who probably shouldn't be, who are doing it for absolutely the wrong reasons. And really, there's nothing wrong with making a few quid, but in terms of actually trying to help people on a spiritual level and advising people, your motivation to do it, it really should not be money. It should not be financial. The reason why you're doing it should be because you care, because you want to make the world a better place, because you want to help people to have better lives and to understand themselves better. Ultimately, you know, if what you have to offer somebody is actually going to help them, then he shouldn't have to keep coming back to you over and over. It's like people who go and see a therapist for 20 years and say, oh, they're so wonderful. Right. If they're so great, why are you still seeing them 20 years later? You know, if they were that brilliant, then they'd have helped you to gain mastery over your own life and control and solve your own problems with, you know, within a reasonably short period of time. You wouldn't still be having to see them 20 years later. A successful therapist is like, well, I'm so glad I was able to help you. Goodbye. Best of luck with the rest of your life. Not, you know, please come back and pay me for the next 20 years. That's an utter failure. So I think you have to look at that aspect of it, of you've got a similar kind of problem that applies to both therapists and to these sort of new age gurus, you know, to keep you coming back on a revolving door, round and round and round and round. If that's the case, that you need constant input from them, then, you know, you're not helping yourself. You know, you should be able to get to a point where you can manage your own affairs, your own spiritual life, and feel empowered in yourself without the constant support of this sort of new age guru or therapist or whatever practitioner to be in the background all of the time. If that's the case, then clearly what they're doing for you isn't working. So I'm very much for self-empowerment, for a Gnostic approach to spiritual evolution and growth. So although, you know, there's no harm in getting some help, ultimately we are all responsible for our own selves and our own future and our own spiritual development, and we need to own that and not be reliant on someone else to fill in all the blanks for us. So that's pretty much all I'm going to say on this. So food for thought, something I hope if you're watching this you'll reflect on and think about, you know, are you in this position where you feel beholden to some kind of spiritual master or guru or person who's put themselves in this sort of position on a pedestal, like, you know, miles above you in a stratosphere? And if you're in that position, maybe you should review that. And I hope this has been useful for people, and please leave a like if you did enjoy it. And you know, the best support you can give me is really to subscribe, to give me a like of the video, and leave a comment if you like. And please check out all my other videos. My videos are monetized, but I don't have any sponsorship or anything like that. The main thing I really want is to get people to watch my content. I don't really care whether I get any money from YouTube or not, but I would like people to watch and share my videos. So if you like what I do, then, you know, feel free to share the videos with other people. Okay, that's it. I'm going to shut up now. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.